6 years ago, when I used to work at Volkswagen, I used to sell loads of Volkswagen T-Rocks. They were the perfect option for young families or for people wanting to move into something, well, just that little bit bigger than their hatchback. And at around £300 a month with a small deposit, they felt pretty attainable. But times have changed. Checking the Volkswagen site today, even with a chunky £2,500 deposit contribution, that same car is well over £400 a month. And that has left a huge gap in the market for people who still need practical, affordable SUVs, but they don't want to bankrupt themselves. And that's where the Chinese brands have been stepping in, offering value-packed models at prices that undercut the mainstream. And this right here is the Chery Tiggo 7, a car which promises big equipment levels, a long warranty and hybrid technology at a price point that really makes you stop and take notice. Hi guys, I'm Tish and welcome back to Auto Social UK. In today's video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about this new model. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. And if you do like new car reviews and car content, then you're in the right place. Make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. I also want to give a big thanks to the Allen Motor Group for letting me spend time with their Tiggo 7. If you wanted to test drive one for yourself or take a closer look in person, then you can do that at their new dealerships in Milton, Keynes, in Romford, and there's also one in Kettering. I'll pop all the details and links in the description box down below. So with that, let's start by looking at who Chery are and what makes them an interesting new arrival in the UK. Chery might be new to the UK, but they're hardly new in global terms. They've been building cars for over 20 years. They're China's largest exporter, and they've sold over 5 million vehicles worldwide. Here in the UK, the brand has made its debut at a big event in London, showing a complete lineup of SUVs. But to start with, only two models will be available, this Tiggo 7 and the larger Tiggo 8. Others will follow on later. Crucially, every Chery comes with a 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty, plus 3 years of RAC breakdown cover. Parts supply is also being handled by DHL, so replacements can actually reach dealers quickly, often in as little as 24 hours. For a brand new name in Britain, that reassurance is really important. One of the first things that I noticed is how straightforward Chery has kept the Tiggo 7 range. There are just two trim levels, Aspire and Summit. That's it. None of the confusing 14 different trim levels that you sometimes find elsewhere. The Aspire starts from just under £25,000 if you want the 1.6 litre petrol, or £30,000 if you want the super hybrid like this one. Then if you want more luxury features, then you move up to the Summit. Simple as that. It makes the whole buying process just a lot easier, and whichever trim you choose, the spec is strong for the money. The version that I'm driving is the Super Hybrid. Now this works a little bit differently to most rivals. It's a plug-in hybrid which you can either charge at home or you can charge it on a public charger. And when it's fully topped up, you get around 56 miles of pure electric driving. That's enough to cover most people's daily or even weekly commutes without ever turning the engine on. But what happens when the battery runs low? Well, this is where the system is really interesting. In many plug-in hybrids, once the battery is empty, the car just behaves, well, like a petrol car with a small hybrid boost. But in the Tiggo 7, the petrol engine's main job is to act as a generator, topping up the battery pack so there's always some electric charge left. You're still being driven by the motors most of the time, and the engine is essentially working in the background to keep things going. And that means that you never end up lugging around a big empty battery that feels like a dead weight. Even with the battery showing depleted, you still get some of the smoothness and torque that you'd expect from an EV-like drive. It's a different philosophy to something like a Kia Sportage plug-in hybrid, but in practice, it works pretty well. Let's go back to those two trim levels because they're a big part of what makes this car so appealing. The Aspire, which is the entry point, is hardly bare bones. You get dual zone climate control, there's adaptive cruise control, you get synthetic leather seats, a Sony audio sound system, parking sensors, wireless charging, and you get the dual 2 12.3-inch screen setup, one for your instrument cluster and one for your infotainment, and these are super clear. We'll talk about those in a moment. Then if you step up to the summit, you add in luxuries like heated and ventilated seats. You get a heated steering wheel, heated rear seats, a powered tailgate that you can open hands-free, and you also get some nice lighting touches like puddle lamps. It's basically the comfort focused trim, and I think that if you're planning on keeping your car for a while, it's worth considering. But even the Aspire is a lot of car for the money. So what is it actually like to drive? Well, around town it behaves very much like a pure electric car. It sets off in EV mode, it's quiet, and then you get that instant torque from the motor, which makes it feel light on its feet. When the petrol engine cuts in, you do notice it, especially if you accelerate hard. But for the most part, it blends in with not too much fuss. It's not as silent or refined as pure EV, of course, but it is smoother than I was expecting from a brand which is new to the UK. While I've had the car, the battery has actually been sitting at 14%, and in that state I found the Tiggo 7 to be noisier than I expected, and that's likely because the engine is working a little bit harder to keep charging the battery rather than just ticking over. The upside, however, is that even with a depleted battery, I've still been sitting around 54.3 miles per gallon, which is impressive given the circumstances. On a faster road like this, the Tiggo 7 settles into a fairly relaxed cruiser. The ride is comfortable on smoother tarmac, but on rougher surfaces it can feel a little bit fidgety, and you do feel the bumps through the suspension more than in some pricier rivals. The steering is very light, which makes it easy for parking in town and driving, but on twisty country roads it doesn't give much feedback. It's not a car that you'll want to push hard, but it isn't trying to be. This is a family SUV that prioritises the sense of use over excitement. Driver assistance and safety aids are plentiful. Things like lane assist, blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, and emergency braking. And personally, I haven't found them to be too intrusive at all. In fact, that's a nice change, although they are quite fiddly to switch off because the settings are buried deep in the infotainment systems, and I haven't found any shortcuts. But luckily, like I said, I haven't actually felt the need to turn them off, which isn't a given nowadays. One feature that I do really like is the parking camera, so it automatically comes on at low speeds and it gives you a clear image that doesn't take over the whole screen. If I had to nitpick, the indicators are oddly quiet. More than once I've actually left them on by mistake, simply because I couldn't hear them. Small detail, but worth pointing out, I suppose. Overall, the Tiggo 7 makes life easy. It's not thrilling, but it's smooth, fairly efficient and relaxing to drive once you settle into its rhythm. Look, design is always going to be subjective, but I think the Tiggo 7 looks pretty good. You've got these sharp crystal style LED headlights and you've got the big diamond pattern grille that gives it some presence. The floating roofline also helps to make it look modern, and around the back you've got these tiger eye style tail lights which really do stand out. It doesn't scream flashy, but it looks contemporary and more premium than the price tag may suggest. Park it next to a Nissan Qashqai or a Kia Sportage and it doesn't feel out of place at all. But I know what you're all going to say, and I will agree. There isn't anything which is standout on this car. It's very similar to lots of the other products that we've seen from the likes of a Moda and JQ. There's nothing that stands this aside from the rest of those cars. But then again, when we're getting more and more affordable SUVs, should we be really complaining? Oh, and I really like this colour. Inside, it's a really nice setup. It's the perfect combination of comfort, modern tech, a bit of style and also practicality because there's lots of storage options. Inside of this armrest you have a massive centre console which includes the ability to cool it as well. So that's really handy for summer when you want to keep your drinks nice and cold, and you can fit loads in there. You also have a storage section up front which includes your wireless charging and 2 cup holders. Then underneath this whole centre console you have it hollowed out, so there's extra storage underneath this. You also get a decent sized glove box and you've got some really deep door cards as well, so it's very handy for popping those items away. In terms of layout, well, it completely makes sense. You have your drive control in the centre here, or your gear selector, which I really love because it's really tactile to use, none of those fiddly buttons. And you also have your drive mode button, once again, right in the middle where you'd expect to press it. Right where the armrest is, you can just pop it and change your drive mode. You also have a volume control button here as well, and you can pop it straight into EV mode. All really handy features straight at your fingertips where they should be. But that's the good news. The negative news is there isn't exactly any physical climate control dials. And I say exactly because you do have some shortcuts which are kind of built into this bit of touchscreen at the bottom here. These are touch sensitive, very similar to what you get in the Nissan Ariya. They look beautiful. They're on this brushed bit of chrome, but they're not the easiest to use. And weirdly, your temperature is right over on the left, so quite far away. And then your fan speed is on the right. However, I do think it's good that you do have some physical shortcuts. On the touchscreen, you also have more functions for your climate control, and again, they're pretty easy to use, but I definitely would prefer some real tactile physical controls. The one other thing I'm finding a little bit strange is I can't ever find any home button. So getting back home to the main touchscreen can be a little bit awkward. You have to almost wait for the screen to finish what it was doing, and then it will go back to the main screen, and this is where you'll find the rest of your settings. I have to say, considering this is a lower price point, it doesn't feel cheap inside. And this is really where these Chinese brands are taking over the mainstream Germans, because these seats are so soft. Yes, they are imitation leather, but they don't feel it or smell like it. There's no plasticky smell. They're very, very soft. You've got the piping down the sides. The steering wheel the same, super, super soft. And I actually like the Chery spelled out across that steering wheel too. You've got controls behind the steering wheel and on the steering wheel as well. Nothing's too fiddly, and the layout is just great, so you can see your speed at all times, and this is all very functional, and everything just feels pretty well built. The fit and finish is great. There's no creaky elements inside here. And you also have this kind of high gloss carbon effect across the dashboard, which makes it feel a little bit sporty. Yes, this is very, very similar to other brands that you get from a Moda and JQ. But then again, that's no bad thing because those cars also feel really good on the inside. Practicality is often where these SUVs either succeed or fail, and the Tiggo 7 does a good job. The boot space is 475 litres, which is in line with something like the Qashqai or the Tucson. Fold the rear seats down and that stretches to 1,500 litres, which is plenty of space for bulkier items. There's actually a very nice wide load opening and a flat load area. There's also a little bit of storage underneath the boot floor, but when I say little, I really mean it. You could literally play a game of whoever manages to fit the charging cables in that spot gets £50,000, because I think it's near on impossible, which is a little bit of a shame. However, elsewhere in the cabin you will find a retractable parcel shelf, and there's also a couple of little hooks on the sides for your shopping. But other than that, it's pretty much standard. There isn't any above and beyond sections inside of here like you'll find in the likes of Skodas. So the boot certainly does the job, and it's competitive compared to rivals, but it's not particularly exciting. And I suppose you could describe the rear of the car very similar. It's very comfortable inside of here. You still get the high quality interior that you have in the front. You get this soft leather effect seats. You get a pull down armrest with a couple of cup holders, and overall it feels nice and light because you've got the panoramic sunroof. You also do have some charging facilities, but it's one USB, which seems a little bit strange. Usually you have USB-Cs in new cars, and you have got one of those in the front, but the two other options are USBs, which does feel a little bit old-fashioned, but I really can't see it being that much of an issue. You've got two ISOFIX fitments back here, and you also do have rear ventilation as well, which is nice in a mid-sized family car at this price point. You also get the really nice touches around the doors as well, including this chrome and the carbon effect. Like I said, there's nothing in the back here which is blowing me away, but leg space and headroom is all good, which is what matters in the back of a family car. So, What do I like and what I don't like about the Tiggo 7? Well, the good points is that it gives you loads of kit for the money. And the hybrid system works really well and actually gives you some useful electric-only range. And the cabin feels more premium than the price suggests. Space and practicality are also strong, and the warranty gives you that confidence. But the not so good stuff. The steering is too light for my personal taste, especially on faster roads. The ride can be a bit firm sometimes on rough surfaces, and while the infotainment system looks smart, some of the menus can be a little bit fiddly to use. And because Chery is new here, things like long-term reliability and resale values, well, they're still a little bit unknown. But overall, the positives way outweigh the negatives. And against rivals like the Nissan Qashqai, the Hyundai Tucson or the Kia Sportage, well, the Tiggo 7 is real value for money. To get to this level of equipment on one of those cars, you'd need to climb quite a few trim levels and spend a lot more money. The Tiggo 7 undercuts them. It offers a longer warranty than many of them, and it throws in a hybrid system that's actually surprisingly capable. Yes, it does lack some of the polish and brand prestige of those cars, but if you can live with that, then you're saving a big chunk of cash. So to wrap it up, the Chery Tiggo 7 is not perfect, but it's a genuinely impressive effort for a brand's new name in the UK. It looks good, it's well equipped, it's practical, and the hybrid version like this offers real-world benefits. The downsides of the steering and the ride not being as sharp and resale values being unknown are a little bit up in the air for now. But if you prioritise value for money, low running costs and plenty of features, it's absolutely worth a look. I'm Tish from Auto Social UK. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more honest car reviews. And remember, if you want to try out the Tiggo 7 for yourself, then you can head to Allen Motor Group in Milton, Keynes, Romford or Kettering. All of the info that you will need will be down in the description box. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time, see you later.